Hello YouTube, BlueMatona here, and welcome to this episode of Game Guides, where I'm going to be taking a look at the Marian Reforms in Rome Total War. So just briefly, in real life, they were a set of military reforms by the Roman general Gaius Marius, essentially the start of a paid professional army for Rome. If you want to learn about this in real life, there's tons written about it online, so definitely go take a look. But we're going to look at what it does in this game, what the Marius Reforms are in this game. And it's one of the most significant events for a Roman campaign. Essentially, the units that you're able to train as one of the Roman factions significantly increase in quality. And I'll go over that later on in the video about what exactly the changes are, but essentially the army that you're able to recruit gets a lot better. And the Marian Reforms are triggered by a Roman faction building the imperial palace in a province on the Italian peninsula. So this can't just be in any province. So here we're looking at the Italian peninsula as a whole, and basically all of the starting Roman provinces work for this. So the two Julii provinces, Rome, the two Scipii provinces, and the two Bruttii provinces that the Roman factions start with at the start of the game. If an imperial palace is built in any of these provinces, then the Marian Reforms will trigger. The event will trigger. In addition to this, in the north, if an imperial palace is built in Segesta, Mediolanium, or Patavium, that will also trigger the event. So if you capture one of these three settlements as one of the Roman factions, most likely the Julii, and you happen to build an imperial palace there first, that will trigger the event. In addition to that, Lilybium down here and Syracuse also work to trigger the Marian Reform. So if an imperial palace is built in one of these two first, most notably if you're the Scipii or the Bruttii, and you capture them early on in the game, then the event will trigger. No other province in the game works. So if you build an imperial palace first in Carthage, or in Corellis, or in Apollonia, any province other than the ones I just mentioned, the Marian Reform event will not trigger, and you will still be training the pre-Marian units. And to build an imperial palace, you need 24,000 population in the city, and you have to have each previous government building built to be able to build the imperial palace. So, you won't be able to do this really in the early game in a normal campaign, because you're going to have to build up a city all the way to 24,000 population, which definitely takes a good amount of time. So now we're going to take a look at the changes that happen when the Marian Reform event triggers, and this is all centered around the military. So all units that are trained before the Marian Reform, so all pre-Marian troops, will stay as they are on the campaign map, and you're still able to use them for city garrisons and in battle and everything that you'd use troops for. But you will no longer be able to retrain them in cities if they're damaged in a battle, and you will no longer be able to train any more of these units just in general if you want a new unit of Principes or Hastati, for instance. So we're going to now go over the troop improvements that happen for each level of military building. So let's look at the infantry first. For the basic barracks, pre-Marian and post-Marian, it stays the same. Town watch. If you have the barracks built in your town, it will be town watch both before and after the event. The next level up is the militia barracks, and here you're able to train Hastati pre-Marian, and then after the Marian Reform event, you can train Auxilia. The next level of barracks is the Legion barracks, and these train Principes before the Marian Reforms, and early legionary cohorts after the Marian Reforms. The next level up is Army barracks. These train Triarii before the Marian Reforms, and the legionary cohorts after the Marian Reforms. And finally, the top level is the urban barracks, and these train Triarii with one chevron of experience before the Reforms, and they train urban cohorts, arguably the best infantry unit in the game after the Marian Reforms. So now let's take a look at the cavalry. The basic level for cavalry stables is just called stables, and they trained equites and war dogs before the Marian Reforms, and Roman cavalry and war dogs after the Reforms. Cavalry stables is the next level up. These train cavalry auxilia, and that stays the same after the reforms. You can still just train the cavalry auxilia from cavalry stables. Next, we have the hippodrome, and this adds on incendiary pigs and equites with +1 experience chevrons before the reforms, and you can train legionary cavalry, and of course still the pigs after the reforms. The final level for cavalry is the Circus Maximus, and these let you train equites with +2 experience chevrons before the reforms, and they let you train the powerful Praetorian cavalry after the reforms. Finally, we have the ranged units. The practice range, the first level of building, lets you train velites before the reforms and light auxilia afterwards. The archery range trains Roman archers and ballistas, and archer auxilia and ballistas after the reforms, which is just a definitely much better version of archers than the basic Roman archers. The catapult range is the next level up, and this stays the same. You still are able to train scorpions and onagers both before and after the reforms. And the final level, siege engineer, stays the same as well, letting you train heavy onagers and repeating ballistas at any point in the campaign. And that about wraps it up. So it's important to remember that for the Marian Reforms to trigger, you need to build an imperial palace, which requires a city with 24,000 population on the Italian peninsula or Sicily, in any of those provinces I listed before. And then this gives you a significant upgrade to your overall army quality, and honestly lets you train a few new units of troops as well. So it's a huge event for the Romans. I want to thank everyone for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all next time.